What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today, I finally want to talk about the 2022 Chicago Bears draft and great Ryan Poles' first draft as the actual Bears GM. And here's how I want to approach it today. We will look at the players and grade them based on positional and draft value, plus the skills that the players bring to the Bears. And then at the end, I grade the entire draft. And now, finally, with some days taken off, I got time to watch all of the Bears players that got picked, and I finally can now give you a more in-depth analysis on those guys, so definitely stay tuned for that. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time and start off with the first pick, which has been Kyler Gordon, cornerback out of Washington. And for me, this is an A. Kyler Gordon was one of the best players available at that spot, and it was the right direction that the Bears were headed into. They picked him in round 2 with pick number 39. I think that was amazing value for him. I actually thought that he would go in the first round, and it was surprising that he was still there in round 2. And for me, he's an amazing player that brings a lot of great traits. Plus, he perfectly fits the Bears, and he's a player that plays a position of need for the Bears as well, which is outside cornerback number 2. Last year's secondary was horrific. I know everybody's thinking offense the whole time, but the defense was okay, but the cornerback situation was pretty terrible, and we only had Jalen Johnson. And with now adding a guy like Kyler Gordon to the other side, you have two very, very good cornerbacks, young cornerbacks on your roster that you can work with for years to come. So I'm actually super excited for Kyler Gordon. So let's talk about what he can bring to the Bears. I mean, he is exceptional in coverage. He has great hips and quick feet to stay in coverage. Great play strength at the line of scrimmage, pressing guys, getting them off their timing. Good eyes, a smart player. He has the speed to keep up with NFL players. He's physical, great ball skills to make a play, and also feeling for it as well. He got the instincts, plus good size and length for the position as well as versatility. I mean, he can play outside, he can play in the slot, he can play press man, off coverage, bail technique, backpedaling. He can give a wideout several looks to make it harder to beat him, actually. So I think that's a great variety and a great skill set to have. Obviously, he still needs to work on some stuff. Sometimes he can get stuck while being engaged in blocks. Plus, he may lack top end speed, but with his already good technique, I think he can really make up for that 4.52 speed, which is still pretty fast. I mean, we're complaining at a very high level. And Kyler Gordon is an excellent pick. Like I said, an A grade for me. Great player, great personality. Also has that dancing background, which kind of helps him as well with his flipping hips and that kinds of stuff. So agile cornerback with a lot of physicality. As I absolutely love. He fits Matt Eberflus's system, that hits philosophy, that hustling on every play. That is Kyler Gordon, and I absolutely love this. As Ryan Poles' first pick ever as the Chicago Bears GM, that is the pick that will be remembered. That's the pick that he thought was the best one for his first pick, and I think it's the best player available on the board. A great pick and a pretty safe one as well, because I think Kyler Gordon will be a very successful corner for the Chicago Bears. Moving on to the next pick in round 2, which was Jaquan Brisker, safety out of Penn State. He was picked at number 48. And for me, guys, this might be controversial, but for me, this is an A+ grade. Jaquan Brisker has been one of my favorite players going into the draft. I talked about him months ago now on a safeties episode where I talked about the best available safeties for the Bears in several rounds. And Jaquan Brisker was a player that I definitely fell in love with. He has amazing tape and is just an elite athlete that offers a lot of great stuff to this Bears defense. And Matt Eberflus also being a partner to Eddie Jackson. Lots of great stuff. He's 6'1", 199 pounds, so a pretty good lengthy safety there. 4.49 40-yard dash. Fast athlete out of Penn State as usual. And I mean, Jaquan Brisker is just a player that perfectly fits the Bears, just like Kyler Gordon. He's also a player that fills out a position of need, safety. We've been looking for that second safety next to Eddie Jackson for years now, since 2018, since the absence of Adrian Amos. We had Clinton Diggs, Tashawn Gibson, veterans that had just a limit. They did not have a high ceiling. They were past their primes. Those were players that were solid, that did their job, but they did not exceed any expectations. And with Jaquan Brisker, you now have a high upside, talented safety that brings so much great things to the Bears. And the most outstanding thing for me is the versatility. A lot of people say safety is a position that is not valued that high, and that is correct. Like running backs, it's a position that has lower value in the draft, but Jaquan Brisker is a player that offers you so many things. Like he can play free safety, strong safety, in the box, at the line of scrimmage, covering wide receivers. I mean, he's just the overall perfect package. He's a weapon in that defense. And next to Eddie Jackson, finally a guy that can hit, that will make the tackles and can go down in the box so Eddie Jackson can drop back. Also, the Bears play a cover 2, so you need to have coverage skills. That's something that Jaquan Brisker definitely has as well. I mean, we can go over his pros. I mean, he's just a physical safety with great tackling, a great competitor, amazing athlete, great against the run, shedding blocks well, and has good tackling angles, good reaction times, covers well in man-to-man situations. He has the ability to cover tight ends, even though I think Dane Cruikshank will actually take over that role because he's that tight end raiser. He loves playing against tight ends, which is great. So now you have Jaquan Brisker in that role or in that role. Then you have Dane Cruikshank as the tight end coverage guy. Then you have Eddie Jackson as your free safety that's roaming back there and catching everything that's thrown his way. Hopefully that will happen. Hopefully that will help returning Eddie Jackson to form as well. Brisker also has great awareness in pass and run situations. He has fast, quick feet and can change direction really fast, and he's always around the ball. He just has these instincts. He's a playmaker back there. Obviously, he still has some room to grow. I mean, he's too upright sometimes when tackling, and he can be stiff when flipping hips, but those are things that a coach can work with. He can train him in that area. I mean, Andre Curtis is an A-plus safeties coach. He coached all of these great safeties that Seattle had, Ken Chancellor, these guys, Earl Thomas. And I mean, Jaquan Brisker is in a great spot to succeed, especially with a head coach that cares a lot about the defense, a defensive coordinator that's a former safeties coach. I think Jaquan Brisker is in great hands and is, like I said, an A-plus pick for me. I, as well as many other fans, thought about offense at that pick, but it's just, once again, the best player that was available at that spot. That's also probably the reason why they did not trade back, because they loved him so much. They stick to the board. Ryan Poles had the guts to pull out 2 secondary guys, which has been a big need, and I think Brisker is amazing, and I'm so excited to see what he can bring to the Bears. He's a player that seems excited to be here, and us fans should be excited about him as well. But that was not it for the Bears at day 2 of the 2022 NFL Draft. They also had a third pick in round number 3, pick number 71. And with that one, they selected Velus Jones Jr., wide receiver out of Tennessee. And Velus Jones is a player that's very interesting to me. I did not expect him at that kind of spot to the Bears, and that's why I'm grading him as a B- to C+ player. I think the pick was kind of high for me. I think he would have still been there in round 4, but you never know with the draft how it shakes out, how these NFL scouts see these players. And I mean, Velus Jones Jr., just as it is, seems like an amazing player and a great guy as well. He's already 25, one of his downsides definitely, because he does not have that much more time to develop. But at the same time, what's the problem with it? You got a guy in the 3rd round with still lots of upside, a guy that can play out his rookie contract, let's say 4 to 5 years, and then you can still give him one contract extension for a few years, and then by then you probably already selected other wide receivers or have the position solidified in some other kind of way. So I don't mind that age factor of that pick. And let's actually talk about what he can bring to the team, because I think he's absolutely amazing and he somewhat fits the offense well. I mean, the guy, first of all, is insanely fast, running a 4.3 140-yard dash, and you see that on tape as well. Like, it's not just that 40 time. He's running away from guys all the time, beating SEC corners. Great competition there, and I mean, he is just straight up fast. Also, what excels with him is he's amazing after the catch, oftentimes breaking the first tackle because he's that strongly built. Like, he's not a weak wide receiver. He's a beast. He can truck over people. He can, like, stiff-arm them, but he also has that elusive factor to him, which makes him really dangerous with the ball in his hands. He has that killer deep threat speed, which that's the factor that perfectly fits with the Bears. You have a young quarterback that has a super strong arm in Justin Fields and who is one of the more accurate deep ball passers in the entire NFL, in my opinion. So Velus Jones Jr. will definitely find his spot on the Bears offense. Also, get him just the ball in his hands. He will make something happen. He also excels at finding the soft spot in zone coverage. But the thing with him is he just ran pretty basic routes at Tennessee. Only slants, hitches, some simple crossing routes. So he definitely needs to work on his route tree. But I believe he can run routes well. I mean, when you look at the Senior Bowl, he really did well in these one-on-one situations where you kind of have to sell several routes differently. And he did that pretty well. It's just at Tennessee, he did not really get the chance to develop a good route tree. So Tyke Tolbert definitely needs to put in some work, but I think with the right coaching, and Tyke Tolbert is a great coach, I think Velus Jones Jr. could be a very, very good weapon for the Bears. He offers that deep threat ability with that good deep ball tracking as well. Plus, he's a super solid blocking wide receiver as well. Like, if you see him, he's always in there with some kind of blocks. If a teammate makes a catch, he is the first guy that is attached to a block. And, I mean, he drives people. He kind of sticks good to them. I mean, as a receiver, it's kind of tough to block, but he does a pretty well job. And that's something I also like to see on tape. So, like I said, B- to C+ for me. And what we also have to mention is his return ability. I mean, the guy is a return specialist. He can return kicks. He can return punts. But, I mean, the Bears brought in so many great return specialists through the draft in UDFA. I mean, it's a lot of choices that the Bears have here, but Velus Jones Jr. offers great return ability as well. I mean, he was a return specialist at Tennessee, and that's also a great aspect of the game that he could potentially have an impact on the Bears, but let's see how that goes. But I still just like his personality, like him as a player. He also said about his age that it doesn't matter to him. He feels like he's more mature and more NFL ready than others. And I think that's kind of true. So just one more aspect that the age doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's a very solid pick. Was it a reach? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how this pans out. I mean, those are pro scouts. Ryan Poles knows what he's doing, in my opinion. So let's see how it turns out. But he's a great personality, fast wide receiver that will definitely offers some great aspects to this Luke Getsy, Justin Fields offense, and I can't wait to see how all things figure out and play out with him. So pretty good pick here. I like this player a lot. So now we got to move on to round 5 actually, and with the 168th pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears selected Braxton Jones, offensive tackle from Southern Utah. The Bears decided to trade back several times on day 3 and acquired a lot of picks. I mean, definitely doubling the amount of picks that they had before going into day 3. And, I mean, they made a lot of picks, so we got still a lot of players to talk about. And Braxton Jones is the first guy. And, I mean, he's 6'5", 310 pounds, and has 35-inch arms, or over 35-inch arms. I mean, the guy is an athletic monster. And it's just a player that screams upside and potential, but still needs to work on some stuff. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a 5th-round pick, obviously. I mean, the guy is an athlete, 4.97, 40-yard dash. And for me, this pick is definitely an A. And let me tell you why, guys. I think the Bears need offensive line, obviously, and everybody wanted to see offensive line at day 2 with one of the 2nd or the 3rd round pick, but they did not decide to go with that. But Braxton Jones, for me, is a potential left tackle, franchise left tackle, if he's developed correctly by Chris Morgan. But just in general, he has all the tools to be a successful left tackle in the NFL. He got good size, 6'5" is not ideal, but pretty good. But he makes it up for it with his super long arms and like this athleticism that he has. 4.97, 40-yard dash is a pretty amazing time. And I mean, the guy, I finally had the time to watch some tape on him. He just stood out on tape, definitely. He's great in pass pro, has fast feet, strong hands with good placement, good positioning with always square hips. He's agile and fast. His athletic upside flashes on tape. Same with his freakishly long arms. And I mean, the guy just, like I said, in pass pro really excelled. I mean, he took these edge rushers like they were nothing and really just acted with them whatever he wanted to do. He also still has two things to improve on. He's too upright at times. In the run game, he tends to be over aggressive and can get beat by rushers easily with some change of direction moves and leaves his chest open on runs, which makes it easier for defenders to control him rather than the other way around. But I mean, he already showed promising things in the run game with his already really good pass pro tape. He needs some development, but he definitely has the potential to become a good starter in the future, which for a fifth rounder is just amazing upside and amazing to see. And we also have to consider Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham are offensive line experts. They've played offensive line themselves, and I actually trust their evaluation of these offensive linemen a lot. So Braxton Jones, high upside, high ceiling offensive tackle that you get in round 5 that has a crazy athletic profile, and I would just love to see how he is in training camp. Unfortunately, I can't be there, but I mean, Braxton Jones is a very good pick, and he's definitely one of my favorite in this entire draft class, and is a player that should compete for the left tackle starter spot right away with Larry Borom. Moving on to the next pick in the 5th round, which was 174, the Chicago Bears selected Dominique Robinson, edge from Miami, Ohio. And this pick for me is probably once again a A+. Like you see, I really like the Ryan Poles draft, but Dominique Robinson in round 5, later in round 5, was an absolute steal for me right away. So that's why I'm giving it, let's not say an A+, let's say an A. A+ might be too high a bit, but definitely an A pick for me. Dominique Robinson is a edge rusher, so not typically a position of need, with Robert Quinn and Travis Gibson being there, also El Quadim Muhammad. But you also got to think for the future, and Robert Quinn is not getting any younger. He's definitely, I mean, it's not past his prime. The guy just had 18 and a half sacks, but I don't know if he can repeat that in 2022. So Dominique Robinson is a pick for the future, and I mean, the guy is just insanely talented and has a high ceiling. He's 6'5", 253 pounds, ran a 4.72 40-yard dash, 41-inch vertical jump. Insane numbers there, and I mean, he's an interesting player. He started playing defensive end or edge rusher 2 years ago. Before that he was a wide receiver, so he's a converted wide receiver. So there you definitely have the explanation why he's that athletic. And let's actually start off talking about his pros. I mean, the guy is just a high upside player that has all the tools you want for an edge rusher. Although he only spent 2 years at the position, he already flashed. He has a very quick first step to beat the tackle fast. Also, he has a great body extension to keep the tackle away from him. Even though he has limited pass rush moves, he does the swipe or hop swipe move that Leonard Floyd used to do really, really well, beating the tackle fast, just reacting to his hands and swiping them kind of away. Plus, he's also as agile just as it gets. As for improvement, his run defense definitely needs a lot of work. He's too upright and also needs to pick up the mental aspect of the game as well. But in general, like I said, an A pick for me. High ceiling player that is crazy athletic and definitely with the right coaching could become a pass rusher for the Chicago Bears. I see him as a pass rush specialist in his first year, and he should be pretty effective at that. Plus, he spends a lot of time behind Robert Quinn and can learn a lot of variety of different pass rush moves. So it is a very beneficial situation for him. He can learn behind very great pass rushers, or especially one great pass rusher that has been doing it for years now in the NFL. And I mean, like I said, the upside is crazy. I love this player. Also seems like a very honest guy when you watch his first press conference where he was asked several questions about the draft and that kinds of stuff. He was just really honest that he did not play the position for that long, and that he still needs to work on some moves. So that's also something great to see, that he's just a honest, down-to-earth guy. But I'm excited to see what he can bring because, like I said, athletically speaking, he is a special player, one of the more upside late-round pass rushers that were available in the entire draft. And now moving on to the next round with the 186th pick in the 6th round of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears selected Zachary Thomas, guard tackle from San Diego State. And I mean, I have to do it again. This pick is an A for me because it's just simple. It's offensive line, it's a huge need for the Bears, and you get in Zachary Thomas a late round steal. I mean, the San Diego State tape of him was pretty amazing, and we definitely have to talk about it. But I mean, the guy's 6'5", 308 pounds, 4.96 40-yard dash, which is a great time. Once again, just like Braxton Jones, highly athletic player. And I have to give this an A because you have to look the tape up, but I can tell you guys, he is an amazing player that will definitely compete for a starting spot, especially at guard right away. And what stands out on tape, first of all, is that he's a nasty run blocker that finishes blocks. And that's something we need in Chicago. We got Tevin Jenkins, who is an aggressive, mauling kind of an offensive lineman, but we need more of them. Like the last couple of years, there wasn't really a player that really was nasty or loved to block. That's really something that was missing. And with Zach Thomas, there's another guy that really just finishes blocks and has a strong punch in the run game. Just a nasty offensive lineman. That's something we love to see here in Chicago. He also really controls the defenders in the run game while they're engaged in blocks. Plus, he has that high athletic upside as well. He excels at the second level. He has great balance and footwork to keep up with the rushers. And I think he has minor things to improve on that are coachable. I mean, he needs to get better in pass pro. He's still got some technique stuff that are not clean. And that's why at the end of the day, I think he's a perfect fit at right guard for the Chicago Bears. Right now, there's only Dakota Dozier listed as the starter. And if Dakota Dozier is your starter heading into 2022, I'm definitely concerned about Justin Fields' health. So Zachary Thomas in round 6 is, it's an amazing steal. I absolutely love this player. He brings such a high upside, and at guard, yes, you still have to pass protect, but he definitely fits better at guard. And at 6'5", 308 pounds, he definitely has the ideal size for a guard in the NFL. And like I said, he is best in the second level while he's run blocking. So as a guard, you're doing a lot of pull blocks, outside zone scheme as the Bears have right now. So he just fits the system. He fits as a player. He fits as a person. It's just roundabout a perfect pick at 186 for the Bears, and I just love it. I think this guy will really pan out and has, like I said, the potential to start at right guard come week 1 in 2022. Later in round 6, the Chicago Bears picked again with pick number 203 and decided to go with a offensive skill player in Trestan Ebner, running back out of Baylor. He's 5'11", 206 pounds, and was once again a pretty good pick after watching his tape. For me, this is a B- grade because I think we still got good running backs in this room, but we lost Tyreek Cohen, and Trestan Ebner is somewhat his replacement in my opinion. He's not the same player, don't get me wrong. Tyreek Cohen is way more shifty. Ebner is more that powerful, fast running back, but what both players share is, first of all, return ability, which is amazing because we need returners. And if you don't want to put your 3rd round pick Velus Jones out there, you definitely have Trestan Ebner, who is a kickoff return specialist. And that's the first positive aspect and similarity with Tyreek Cohen. And then also, he's just fast. 4.43 40-yard dash, and that's the same like Tyreek Cohen, just that speedy, fast running back that you have as your potentially 3rd option behind David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. And watching his tape, I was kind of shocked how good it looked. Like I said, he has that kick return, punt return ability. He is kind of shifty, has amazing speed, and really great contact balance. He showed the ability to break tackles, that he has good gap understanding, and also just his catching ability. Like, he is a former wide receiver that turned running back at Baylor, and you see that on tape. Like, he runs pretty well routes. He also catches the ball nice and fluid, turns up the field right away. The guy is a potential 3rd down back in the future that will definitely carve out a role on offense right away and special teams early. He still needs to improve on some areas of his game. Definitely his blocking. He gets moved pretty easily. And that's basically it for him. He's a running back that offers a lot of things in the backfield. He can get you some good yards. He has that breakaway speed. He is strong. He has that good contact balance. He has that great catching and route running as well. So he will definitely somewhat carve out a role in Luke Getzey's offense. And I'm excited to see what he can bring to the team. I think it's a good pick. I like it. And definitely not a wrong choice by Ryan Poles here. And yeah, let's just see what happens with Trestan Ebner. Hopefully he will make the roster, but I'm confident that he will make it because, I mean, the tape was just really, really good. So let's see what happens with him, but once again, a really, really good pick. And just a couple of picks later, with the 207th pick, the Chicago Bears selected Doug Kramer, center from Illinois. And Doug Kramer is an interesting prospect that I'm honestly not the biggest fan of. He's 6'2", 299 pounds, and just a player that I grade as a C+. He's a talented player who could turn into the starting center over the next few years. He's smart with good amount of experience and excels at pull blocks where he can get moving and attack people. He possesses good athleticism with upside, but the guy just needs to work on technique as well as getting stronger because he can get pushed back fairly easy. And I mean, the problem with this pick for me is, and that's why it's in the C range. I mean, I could have even said it's a C or C minus pick, just because, I mean, it's a center. It's a pure center. You got Lucas Patrick solidified as your center, or as it stands today. So you get a player that's only able to play one position at the offensive line, and mostly if you want to be a backup center in the NFL, you got to play more positions than one. Like a Sam Mustipher fits better as a backup center, in my opinion, than a Doug Kramer. Does that mean he's the better center? No, but it's just Sam Mustipher can't play guard and center, but Doug Kramer has played center his entire collegiate career, and that's somewhat the problem with him. It limits him in some kind of way. I still think he could make the roster, like I said, as the backup center or at least the practice squad. And hey, if he does really well and Lucas Patrick has the ability to move the guard as well, Doug Kramer could potentially take over the center spot within 1 year. I mean, I think he still needs to develop. So not this year, but maybe next year, you got a starting center. And if Doug Kramer proves everyone wrong and just kind of gets rolling and really plays well and becomes a starting center for the Bears for the next 6 to 10 years, that's perfect. I mean, that would be the perfect scenario, especially for a 6th round pick. Just for me personally, limiting a player to one role, especially in the offensive line, is somewhat of a bad value. So that's why I have him kind of lower graded than others, but I'm still okay with the pick. It seems like Ryan Poles liked him, so something has to be interesting about him, and let's find out what this will be. But an okay pick, offensive line still, so another protector for Justin Fields, which is great as well. And speaking of protectors of Justin Fields, in round 7, the Chicago Bears decided to go offensive line for the 4th time, but also the last time in this year's draft. 226 was the pick in round 7, and they picked Ja'Tyre Carter, guard tackle from Southern. And I mean, he was listed as a tackle in the NFL draft or NFL Network presentation, but he's definitely a guard. He's 6'3", 311 pounds, and it's just an athletic, strong guy with good upside. 5.13 40 time, great athlete. And the thing with him is, I have to honestly say, I did not have any tape on him besides the Senior Bowl. And I've rewatched the Senior Bowl practices, and I think he held his own pretty well. I mean, he's from an HBCU school, so definitely the competition is not that high than Division I or SEC, Big Ten, all these big conferences. But I mean, the guy is just talented, and I absolutely love that he was still available at pick number 226, which is really good value for him. That's why I'm grading him as a B+ pick. I mean, it's the 4th offensive lineman in a row. You could have went with other direction at that pick, so that's why I have him as a B+. But at the end of the day, Ja'Tyre Carter is a guy that potentially will compete with Zachary Thomas for that right guard spot. I don't think he's out of the race at all. I mean, the guy has a strong punch, has good feet, fast movements, fluid guy that still needs to improve in some areas, but I think he's talented and could definitely carve out a role as a backup guard for the Bears for many years or as a starter eventually as well. Let's see how that plays out. But Ja'Tyre Carter is a pretty good player that also fits the offensive line. He's a more nasty guy like Zachary Thomas, a guy that really wants to block. You know what I mean with that guy? So pretty good pick, Ja'Tyre Carter. I like him a lot. Just unfortunately, I did not have any tape to watch on him. And then the Chicago Bears were trading away the 2023 sixth-round pick that they got in the trade of Khalil Mack and got two late picks in round 7, 254 and 255. And with these picks, they decided to first go with Elijah Hicks, safety from Cal. And he's an interesting player that has, first of all, A+ personality. I mean, I like the guy a lot, and you saw it in his reaction video. I don't know if you saw it, but the guy has a very, very good personality. He's happy to be a Chicago Bear, funny guy. I guess he's a locker room friendly guy that brings good energy to the field every day. And I've also heard some stories about him supporting the locals a lot at Cal, giving them food and kinds of stuff. So it seems like a very, very good person, A+ player. And the pick for me in general is a B+. He's 5'11", 198 pounds, and played safety for Cal. And I mean, he's a player that brings a lot of great traits and especially versatility. I mean, he played cornerback, he can play strong safety, he can play free safety, he can do it all, and it's just a playmaker. I mean, he had 3 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles in 2021, and mostly will probably be a special teamer. He's kind of your DHC, Sherrick McManus, Deion Bush type of guy. A guy that's potentially a backup that can come in and play really solid, can play several roles. That's why he's probably pretty interesting for the Bears coaches as well. And then he's on special teams. It's just that guy that sticks on the team for years and just makes special teams plays over and over and over again. And those type of players are players that I absolutely love. And I think Elijah Hicks is a really good pick late in the 7th round. And I like it. And let's see how this one turns out. But I think there's not a lot wrong with that pick. And to round out the draft, the Chicago Bears selected Trenton Gill with pick 100. Trenton Gill, punter from NC State, at pick number 255. And for me, that's a B- pick. I think it makes sense to draft a player or a punter late because you want to secure him, because if he's a UDFA, he can decide himself where he wants to sign. So you lock up a punter, and I honestly did not watch any tape of him. I mean, punter is a important position, but I'm not evaluating punters. I don't know what they can do right or wrong. I just read some reports, and I mean, the guy has pretty good hang time. His leg strength is not the best. It's average to above average, and he's just your average punter that probably will stick on the team for many years, and you will never complain about him. He just does his job, but nothing too outstanding, and I think that's okay. That's a good pick by round polls. With this last pick, you solidify a position of need once again. We did not have a punter on the team, or just some punter, but I don't know who he is. But we lost Pat O'Donnell, and I think Trenton Gill is a guy that has a 6'4", 220 pounds frame. So I don't know if that makes any difference, but I guess that's pretty good. And I mean, the guy probably offers a lot of great things. We'll have to wait and see how he will punt in preseason, that kind of stuff. So then I can actually say something about him, but I was not that motivated to watch some punter tape. But at the end of the day, it's still a pretty good pick and a B- for me. So it has been a lot of players. I hope you've been sticking with me through this long video. And just to round this off, let's talk about the draft in general. And I mean, for me, this draft is a B+. Ryan Poles' first draft is a B+. He helped the team with picking guys that were a positional need. Could there have been more wide receivers taken? Definitely, but at the other side, we still got a lot of offensive linemen in this draft, which is great. We got a lot of secondary help. We got an explosive running back. We got a punter for the future. I mean, what else do you want? It was a really, really good pick. And we still got Velus Jones Jr., a explosive wide receiver. The Bears traded back a couple of times to acquire more picks to fill out the roster with quality guys. That's something we did expect, and in my opinion, Ryan Poles in that area did a great job as well, not giving up any big value in these trades. So for his first draft, I think he did a exceptional job. He didn't get fleeced in any kind of trade. He basically had no reaches, maybe one or two that are debatable, but for me at least not. And I mean, I'm just happy that the Chicago Bears have a new face, a new GM that stands behind his choices, a guy that prioritizes the needs, players that he wants to go with. He's not a guy that just sticks with, quote, their guy. He's a man of his words. He addresses the positions that he wants to address, and I think he did a really good job here. And I'm just excited to see all these new rookies, which is such a high amount. To see them on the field. Rookie mini camps just finished this weekend or last weekend now, and I've heard a lot of good stuff. And yeah, guys, I'm just excited for the upcoming season, even though it probably won't be that good. But still, it's Chicago Bears football. It's fun all the time. And with that draft, Ryan Poles definitely helped the Chicago Bears. So that wraps up this long episode, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Definitely stay tuned for the next videos, which will probably be about the schedule release or something else, some reports. I don't know what will happen, but definitely stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram for the latest news. And as always, guys, bear down.